The remote jungles of South America had always held a certain allure for archaeologists, but this site was different. From the moment Dr. Daniel Harper arrived, he felt a peculiar mix of anticipation and unease. Sent by his university to a remote location far from civilization, he knew the area had potential to reveal ancient secrets buried deep beneath the earth, but nothing could have prepared him for what he would find. The first few days of the dig were uneventful. The team uncovered pottery, fragments of tools, and remnants of a small village. Interesting, but not extraordinary. Daniel worked methodically, documenting everything, always searching for that one discovery that would change the course of his career. On the fifth day, while working in a secluded area away from the main site, Daniel's trowel struck something hard. It wasn't stone or pottery. The material was smooth, metallic, and had an otherworldly sheen. He carefully brushed away the dirt, revealing more of the object. It was massive, unlike anything he had ever encountered, and it sent a chill down his spine. As he continued to excavate, the object's true scale became apparent. It stretched far beneath the earth, covered in intricate patterns that seemed almost alive, shifting when he wasn't looking. The discovery was exhilarating, but also deeply unsettling. This was something ancient, something that had defied all known history. Despite his excitement, Daniel hesitated to share his find with his colleagues. He couldn't explain what he had just uncovered, and he feared that they would dismiss him as a crackpot. He decided to keep digging, to uncover more before revealing his discovery. As the days passed, Daniel became increasingly obsessed. He spent every waking moment at the site, driven by a compulsion he didn't fully understand. The object seemed to call to him, invading his thoughts and dreams. The headache started soon after, a dull throb that grew worse the longer he worked. But he couldn't stop. The object held a power over him, a dark allure that pushed him to continue. And then, without warning, disaster struck. The rains had been relentless, and the hillside above the site finally gave way. A massive mudslide buried the object, and the excavation site under tons of earth. When the dust settled, Daniel stood at the edge of the destruction, his heart sinking as he realized that everything was lost. Desperate, he tried to explain to his colleagues what he had found, but the evidence was gone. They listened politely, but he could see the skepticism in their eyes. Without proof, his story sounded like the ravings of a madman pushed too far by isolation and the stress of the jungle. The headaches worsened, and Daniel's mind began to unravel. The object, once so vivid in his memory, began to fade. It was as if the discovery was erasing itself from his thoughts, taking with it the knowledge of what he had seen. Paranoia set in. He felt as though he was being watched, as though something didn't want him to remember what he had found. His colleagues urged him to take a break, to clear his head, but Daniel couldn't let it go. He was cursed by what he had uncovered, haunted by the knowledge that he had stumbled upon something that could change the world, a revelation that was now lost to him. In a final, desperate attempt, Daniel tried to return to the site, but the area was declared too dangerous. The mudslide had rendered it inaccessible, and he was forbidden from going back. His obsession turned inward, consuming him from the inside out. The nightmares became relentless, filled with visions of the object and the incomprehensible things it had shown him. Then one day, Daniel simply vanished. His colleagues found his tent empty, his belongings left behind. He had disappeared without a trace, leaving no clues as to where he had gone. Some speculated that he had fled, driven mad by his obsession. Others believed that he had returned to the site, determined to uncover the object once more, and had perished in the attempt. But the truth was far more chilling. The object remained buried, its secrets hidden deep beneath the earth. waiting for the next unfortunate soul to uncover them. And Daniel Harper, the man who had come so close to revealing a truth that could have changed humanity's understanding of itself, was lost forever, consumed by the very mystery he had sought to unravel. The jungle reclaimed the site, and with it, the memory of Daniel's discovery. The world moved on, unaware of the ancient secret that lay hidden beneath the earth, and the man who had sacrificed everything to uncover it. I had always been passionate about music. It was my escape, my refuge from the drudgery of everyday life. When I wasn't working or dealing with the mundanities of life, I was strumming on my guitar, composing melodies, or getting lost in the rhythms of my favorite songs. Music was my world. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, I was browsing online for some new tunes to inspire me when I stumbled across a post on a niche music forum. It was titled The Lost Symphony and claimed to be a recently discovered piece by an obscure 19th century composer. The post was intriguing, promising an auditory experience like no other, a symphony that could only be heard by those truly attuned to music. It piqued my curiosity, and without thinking, I downloaded the file. The moment I hit play, I was hooked. The symphony began with a gentle, haunting melody that resonated deep within me. It was unlike anything I'd ever heard. Absolutely beautiful, melancholic, and otherworldly. The notes seemed to swirl around me, pulling me into a trance. As the music played on, it grew more complex, the harmonies weaving together in a way that was almost hypnotic. I couldn't get enough of it. I listened to it on repeat, each time hearing something new, something more. The music began to seep into my thoughts, invading my dreams. I'd wake up in the middle of the night with the melody echoing in my head, unable to shake it. It was like the symphony had become a part of me, and I couldn't escape it. At first, it was exhilarating. The music inspired me, pushing me to new creative heights. I started composing more, playing more, driven by the desire to create something as profound as the symphony. But soon, the exhilaration turned into obsession. I stopped listening to anything else. My favorite bands, my own compositions, all of it faded into the background as the symphony took over my life. I noticed changes in myself. I became irritable, short-tempered. I couldn't focus on anything other than the music. My friends grew concerned, but I brushed them off, convinced they wouldn't understand. They couldn't hear what I was hearing after all. The symphony was my muse, my inspiration. I needed it. But as the days passed, the music began to change. The once beautiful melodies became darker, more dissonant. The harmonies that had once lifted my spirits now filled me with a sense of dread. It was as if the symphony was evolving, twisting into something sinister. And yet, I couldn't stop listening. The more I tried to pull away, the more it pulled me in. Then came the voices. At first, they were faint, barely audible beneath the music. But as I listened more, they grew louder, more distinct. They whispered to me, insidious and malevolent, telling me things I didn't want to hear. They spoke of darkness, of despair, of things better left unspoken. They told me I was nothing, and that I'd never amount to anything without them. I tried to fight it, to turn off the music, but it was too late. The symphony had its hooks in me, and the voices grew stronger with each passing day. They told me to push away my friends, to isolate myself. They told me to focus on the music, to let it consume me, and I did. I let it take over my life, pushing everything and everyone away until there was nothing left but the symphony and the darkness it brought with it. My work suffered, my relationships crumbled, I stopped eating, sleeping, and I was consumed by the need to listen, to understand, and to unravel the secrets hidden within the music. The voices became my only companions, guiding me deeper into the abyss. They told me to create, to compose my own symphony, one that would rival the one I had found. But no matter how hard I tried, I could never get it right. The music I created was hollow, empty, a pale imitation of the symphony that haunted me. Desperate, I decided to delete the file. I thought that maybe, just maybe, I could break free if I destroyed it. But when I tried, my computer froze, the screen flickering with static. The music blared from my speakers, louder than ever before, drowning out my thoughts. The voices screamed at me, telling me I would never escape, that I was now theirs. In a panic, I ripped the plug from the wall, but the music wouldn't stop. It echoed in my mind, relentless and unending. My computer sparked and smoked, the screen going black and the smell of burning plastic filling the room. But even then, the music played on, seared into my brain. I fled my apartment, running into the night, but there was no escape. The symphony followed me, the voices taunting me, reminding me of what I had lost, of what I had become. I was a shell of my former self, a prisoner to the music that had once brought me so much joy. Now, as I sit here alone in the darkness, I realize the truth. The symphony was never just music. It was a curse, a siren song that lured me into madness. And now, there's no way out. The music will play on forever, and I will be its captive, lost in the haunting melody that has become my life. My journey through Chile had been nothing short of magical. As a traveler and avid hiker, I had experienced the wild beauty of the Andes, the tranquility of remote villages, and the vibrant culture of bustling cities. But today was different. I had heard whispers from other hikers about a hidden gem, a vista that offered the most breathtaking view of the Chilean landscape. It was said to be one of those places that, once seen, would remain etched into your memory forever. The trek to the vista was challenging, but as I reached the top, I was rewarded with a view that words could scarcely describe. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the valleys below, with the snow-capped peak of the Andes stretched out endlessly into the horizon. The beauty was overwhelming, and for a moment, I felt an immense sense of peace and fulfillment. This was the pinnacle of my travels, the highlight of everything I had experienced so far. But as the sun began to set, it was time to make my way back. I packed up my things and started down the trail, only to be met with an unexpected obstacle. A landslide had blocked the main path back to the road. With no other option, I was forced to take a detour that led me through a dense forest and around the base of the mountains. The further I went, the more isolated I felt. The trail was poorly marked, and the undergrowth was thick, making it difficult to navigate. As the light faded and dust settled in, an eerie silence enveloped the forest. My nerves began to fray, but I pressed on, determined to make it back to the road before darkness fully set in. As I hiked deeper into the forest, the terrain grew more rugged, and soon I found myself in a remote part of the mountains I hadn't planned on visiting. The air grew colder, and a strange unease settled over me. Just when I thought I might have to turn back and find another route, I stumbled upon something I never expected to find. A cemetery. It was an ancient place, far off from the beaten path, with crumbling headstones and a wrought iron gate that hung ajar. The sight of it sent a chill down my spine. The graves were old, some marked with dates from centuries past, but what struck me the most was the state of the place. The cemetery had been desecrated. Bones lay strewn across the ground, broken and scattered as if someone or something had dug them up and left them there. The headstones were cracked and overturned, some broken into pieces. A foul odor hung in the air, a mix of decay and something else, something I couldn't quite place. There were signs of recent activity, shovels discarded carelessly, footprints in the dirt, and the unmistakable marks of something being dragged through the mud. My heart pounded in my chest as I took in the grisly scene. The longer I stood there, the more I noticed. Claw marks gouged into the earth, strange symbols carved into the trees surrounding the cemetery, and dark stains on the ground that I dared not examine too closely. It was as if a great violence had been unleashed here, and whatever had caused it was something far beyond my understanding. I took out my camera and began documenting the scene, snapping pictures of the carnage and the eerie details that made my skin crawl. I wasn't sure why I did it. Maybe it was the instinct of a traveler to capture what I saw, or maybe I had hoped to find some explanation later. But as I took the photos, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Every snap of the camera seemed to echo in the silence, amplifying my fear. Finally, the weight of the atmosphere became too much. I turned and hurried away from the cemetery, my breath coming in ragged gasps as I stumbled through the darkening forest. Every shadow seemed to move. Every rustle of leaves made my heart leap. I didn't stop until I saw lights of the town in the distance, and even then, I felt though something was following me, just out of sight. Back at my hotel, I tried to review the photos I had taken, but something was wrong. The images were corrupted, distorted, blurred, and covered in strange static. None of them were clear enough to make out any details, and some were completely black. It was as if the cemetery itself had rejected my attempts to capture it. The next morning, I asked around the town about the cemetery, describing what I had seen. The locals gave me puzzled looks, insisting that there was no cemetery in that part of the mountains. Some even laughed, telling me I must have been mistaken, that the only cemeteries were far from where I had been hiking. But I knew what I had seen, and no amount of denial could erase the memory of that night. The images haunted me, even though they were lost, and the feeling of unease lingered long after I left Chile. I couldn't shake the sense that I had stumbled upon something I was never meant to see, something that should have remained buried in the remote mountains, far away from the eyes of the living. To this day, I still can't explain what I found in those mountains, but I know one thing for certain. I will never forget the horror of that desecrated cemetery, and the chilling realization that some things are better left undisturbed. If there are any stories you would like me to read, please reach me on my email in the description. And remember to like and subscribe, as it does help in the algorithm. And also, hit the notification bell to get notified every time I put up a video. Also, leave a comment to let me know how you felt about the stories. Thank you, and have a frightful night.